Good morning. Welcome to Hindu Newspaper Analysis 13th December 2022. First article, Indian and Chinese soldiers clash near Arnau border. If you are in the preparation from last few years, you will find that this kind of border clashes happened near LAC, Line of Actual Control, in the year 2020. Famously called as Galvan Valley clashes, in which India lost 23 its soldiers, but Chinese till now unreported. Officially they said less than 10 people, but as per some international media, more than or around 50 people died in that clashes. Whatever it can be, we have to conclude that border clashes between China and India is quite frequent near the line of actual control, but this time attention drives towards the Arunachal Pradesh area. Remember, China and India shares three different kinds of borders. One is eastern sector, one is western sector, and one is central sector. The eastern sector boundary consists of Arunachal Pradesh regions, and western sector includes line of actual control. The major contention in the western sector is Aksai Chin area, and eastern sector is Arunachal Pradesh. In 1914, British India and Chinese under the involvement of even Tibetan leaders came for the conclusion of McMahon Line. McMahon Line in 1914, after the Shimla Conference, it was created and it was demarcated. But China under Mao Zedong, that is PRC, doesn't recognize this McMahon Line. Even today, there is a series of contentions between India and China over the McMahon Line. So this is the major issue. If you are reading newspaper, read the article and just have the background in your mind so that it will be easy for remembering for longer time. Remember, the border clashes right now happen near the Tawang sector of eastern boundary region between India and China. Next article, retail inflation falls below 6% mark for first time in 2022. We need to remember that inflation is a very important component in any economy. Milton Friedman observed that inflation is taxation without legislation. So inflation, what it refers? It refers generally rises in the prices of the goods and services. In India, there are two ways to understand the inflation. One is wholesale price index and consumer price index. The article talks about retail inflation, which is mostly associated with the consumer price index. So it measures the price changes from the perspective of a retail buyer. So there are several categories here: CPI for industrial workers, agricultural laborers, rural laborers, and rural urban combined, so on and so forth. In India, it will be measured from the base year 2012. In fact, even Monetary Policy Committee also try to focus on the CPI control mechanisms. So this is the background of retail inflation. The other one is wholesale price index. You can also read from your notes. I just want to add one information to the previous thing. That is, the CPI was given will be published by National Statistical Office or Central Statistical Office. Next article, benefits of policy on rare diseases not reaching patients. So this is somewhat interesting thing. In India, we do have a rare disease policy. It includes lysosomal storage disorders, Gaucher disease, Pompe disease, MPS 1 and 2 and Fabry disease. In India, we follow this. One must remember that India announced National Rare Disease Policy 2021 after a series of directions given by Delhi High Court. Now, this is focused on research and development of medicines with respect to rare diseases, providing low-cost treatment and making accessibility of diagnosis for early detection of these schemes. It tries to categorize the diseases into three forms, and it created a sufficient amounts under Rashtriya Arogya Nidhi, in which they will provide assistance to the below poverty line people. Apart from that, even Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana also provides assistance to these families. And it also provides a voluntary crowdfunding mechanism to treat this kind of diseases. And there is a center of excellence, and this will focus on providing financial support of 5 crores for the upgradation of diagnosis facilities. Apart from that, policy also highlights that there should be a national registry of data and also a research and development about these diseases. So this is article about rare earth diseases. Just remember these facts for your prelims as well as answer writing point of view also. Next article talks about Jaishankar to attend meetings on UNSC reforms and terrorism. It is well known fact that as a part of United Nations non-permanent member category, India now became the president of UNSC for this month. That is, for month of December 2022, India is holding the chair of United Nations Security Council, but it doesn't get any kind of veto power for this time also. Now, as a responsible member of the UNSC, as a non-permanent member, India raised its concerns over terrorism. And if you watch yesterday's newspaper, it talks about our UN permanent representative to United Nations stated that countries should not divide good terror, bad terror. Terrorism is against for all the humanity itself. And there, now India leading the ministerial debate on the theme of new orientation for reformed multilateralism norms. And this is also time to discuss global approach to counter-terrorism. So these are these two key highlights you can remember for the prelims point of view. One is what is norms. It is India's theme of debate on new orientation for reformed multilateralism, and then global approach to counter-terrorism. These two are the important points. We will wait and watch for the next developments in this regard. Next article, how long will Ashish Mishra remain in jail without bail? So this is Supreme Court observation in arresting of an accused person, Lakhimpur Kheri violence case, that is Ashish Mishra, and it is a question about how long he will in jail. One must remember Supreme Court famous statement given in Rajasthan versus Bhal Chand Bhalai case. It stated bail is the rule and jail is an exception. So this is what I want to stress from this article. While reading this kind of articles, you should recall this statement given by the Supreme Court in Rajasthan versus Bhal Chand Bhalai case. That is, jail is exception and bail is the rule. Remember these things for our answer writing point of view. Next, politics of national renewal. Article highlights about several dimensions of challenges to democracy. One must remember that democracy is hallmark of our Indian Constitution. However, in the recent times, we are witnessing series of challenges to democracy. If I quote, a couple of days back, we discussed about Manipur government which is banning the books of a person who is writing against some, he is writing about some non-cultural element of Manipur government. At that time, it issued circulars to ban the publications. Now, what is important for us is such kind of banning is against the freedom of speech and expression given as a fundamental right, and it is the hallmark of democracy also. Further, we should also remember that in India, the social hostilities are rising at a faster pace. According to Pew Research Center on Social Hostilities, India ranks first. Apart from that, Indian democracy is also facing some rising inequalities. World Inequality Report mentioned 1% of population controlling 22% of wealth. Even other quoted some data, top 10% of India's population controlling 77% of India's wealth. So which is against the egalitarian democratic values. So what democracy is focusing about? Here in recent elections in Gujarat and even Himachal Pradesh highlights the freedom given in the democratic world. According to Winston Churchill, and I quote, "At the bottom of all tributes paid to the democracy is the little man walking into a polling booth with a little pencil, making a little cross on a little bit of paper. No amount of rhetoric or voluminous discussion can possibly diminish the overwhelming importance of that point." Winston Churchill said, I just want to give a conclusion for that statement. The freedom to vote with you as per your consensus, the freedom to elect your leader is a hallmark of democracy. But can we celebrate with that point enough? Can we stop there and celebrate that success of democracy? Others says no for it. Because in India, we are witnessing core challenges to the democracy, that is democratic discussions and debates. Now, the villainy, the criminal behavior or the behavior which is not accepted at the social forum, at the public forum is rising. It is not from the public, even the parliamentarians or legislatures, even showing odd behavior in the public space. Odd behavior, I mean, using the language, abusive language, ignorance, egotism, reflexive bigotry, and arresting and curbing the oppositions. So this politics on persecution of adversaries, that is politics against some group of people, controlling their freedom of speech and expression, opposing criticism, is also a challenge to democracy. Apart from that, other highlighted failure of justice system, in which legal system unable to provide proper justice. As you see, number of undertales rising is a cause of concern. If you see number of undertales data, according to NCRB, our jails are working beyond 100%. States like Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, and even some parts of Delhi even having 200% of undertales. So that highlights a recent concern of Supreme Court over the rise in under trials. At the same time, we witnessed President Draupadi Murmu talks about requirement of more jails, which other quoted as violation of dignity in the democracy, and which is a promise of democratic values. So others said this kind of rises in under trials, this kind of opposition against the criticism is affecting the liberal state concept and accountable power concept. Later, other also suggested that challenges are rising towards the democracy as the expansion of national economy and reduction levels of absolute poverty. So here, material pursuit of the public doesn't giving focus towards the state's control or state's encroachment on fundamental rights. So that is very valid statement. That is, when people are worried about their incomes, their level of incomes, rise in production, they are not giving utmost priority to the fundamental rights and encroachment of fundamental rights by the government. So what is the best way? So for all these challenges, others suggested that liberal thoughts should be at the open space. People should discuss and debate the politics, renewal of leadership of the political parties, Learning Gandhian politics. Gandhian politics, I mean, understanding that individual has the capacity to discuss and debate. State should not force people to follow their commands. Then, focusing on the manufacturing consent to preserve the democracy. Rationing conversations. Collective political assertions in favor of freedom over fear. Inclusion over exclusion. Justice over injustice. Politics of accommodation and conciliation. So these are the most important points we can understand. These kind of articles could be useful in writing essays. Not in GS, we cannot have overall discussion about these questions, but however in essay writing we can use these points. Next article talks about big tech and need in India for ex anti-regulations. It all begins in 2022, even 2020 also, where series of complaints were registered. In 2020, series of complaints were registered by Delhi Vyapar Mahasangh (DVM), a representative body of small-scale economies, small-scale industries, against the Amazon and Flipkart. What is the reason? The reason is, as Amazon and Flipkart involving in some malpractices of business, that is deep discounting, predatory pricing, exclusivity with seller and preferential treatment. What I mean predatory pricing, they will try to lower the prices to eliminate the rivals in the business. What is deep discounting? Large amount of or reduction in the prices. What is preferential treatment? Which is often called as cherry picking, that is giving importance to some companies or industries. After this complaint in 2020, market regulator Competition Commission of India started raids against Amazon company, and even Amazon shut down some of its malpractices companies also. You should remember that in this year, in the month of October, Competition Commission of India imposed a penalty of around some crores on Google. First of all, what is the role of Competition Commission of India? CCI, established as per the Indian Competition Act 2002 to promote competition and to prevent the malpractices in the market. Unfortunately, this CCI is not empowered legally to handle with big tech companies. Big tech companies like Google, Amazon, Flipkart, they are involved in greater share in the market. You should remember that e-commerce rised to the peak level during the COVID time also. Now, what is the other's argument? Others suggesting that India doesn't have a legal document or legal profile to deal with this kind of issues. So India can learn from European Union, which placed Digital Market Act and gatekeepers to enforce rules and regulations in a ex ante manner. So what is this ex ante procedures? Ex ante, according to Cambridge Dictionary, meaning in expectations or advance or before the event. So others suggesting that before the evidence of malpractices, before the findings of malpractices, India should bring ex ante regulation for this kind of e-commerce business and even digital marketings. You should remember that India is now put forward Competition Amendment Bill, which is under the Parliament, where it aims to bring some reforms in the regulation of the markets. So these are the important things in the article, but one have to keep this in mind that apart from regulating market, even data is also not regulated in India. Securing data is important because the sensitive data like financial resources, financial elements, and also locations and medical history, everything is with the online platforms itself. So that there is a high need for data regulation, and the Consumer Protection Act 2020 also laid down some rules for fair competition for consumers. Enforcement of these rules is important in two manners. One is to compensate the consumers and to impose penalties on the companies. So there is a high need for CCI to adopt the new laws based on the ex ante manner. Next article talks about Iran publicly carries out second protest execution. We all witnessed that in 2022 onwards, we witnessed the death of Amini, a Kurd ethnic group person who protested against this hijab. Now, after that event onwards, we are witnessing series of events where protesters are subject for violence. Now here, Mazidara Rahan Warad, a 23 years old person killed by the forces publicly, so which is also a important element in human rights violation at the global level. That's all for today. Thank you so much and Jai Hind.